Shedeur Sanders just turned down $40 million. Not a rumor, not speculation, actual money, guaranteed money, from an NFL team that was ready to make him one of the highest paid rookies in league history before he ever took a snap. And the reason he said no? The real story behind why he walked away from generational wealth is going to expose the ugliest truth about how the NFL draft actually works behind closed doors. This isn't about football anymore. This is about power, control, manipulation, and a conspiracy involving multiple teams that's designed to destroy Shedeur's value before draft night even happens. The team that offered him the money is shocking. The conditions attached to that offer are disgusting, and the evidence that Deion Sanders has been collecting for months proves that NFL executives have been coordinating to tank Shedeur's draft stock so he falls to a specific team at a massive discount. What you're about to hear involves leaked text messages, recorded phone calls, insider testimony from agents who've turned whistleblower, and a plot so brazen that if it's proven true, the NFL could be facing the biggest scandal since Deflategate. February 12th, 2026, 9:47 p.m. Eastern Time. A private jet lands at a small airport outside of Boulder, Colorado. On that plane are two NFL team executives, a contract negotiator, and a lawyer. Their mission? Make Shedeur Sanders an offer he can't refuse. By 11:30 p.m., they're sitting across from Shedeur and Deion Sanders in a conference room at a private facility. The meeting was arranged in secret, no agents present initially, just family. And what these executives are about to propose will change everything we thought we knew about Shedeur's draft situation. According to sources who were briefed on the meeting, one of the executives slides a document across the table to Shedeur. It's a contract proposal. 4 years, $40 million guaranteed. Signing bonus of $12 million paid immediately upon signing. For context, that's more guaranteed money than any rookie quarterback has ever received before being drafted. It's unprecedented. It's generational wealth. It's the kind of offer that 99% of college players would sign without even reading the fine print. But Shedeur Sanders isn't 99% of college players, and what happened next shocked everyone in that room. Let me take you inside this meeting, because what was said, what was offered, and why Shedeur walked away exposes a level of manipulation and corruption in the NFL draft process that most fans never see. The executives who flew to Colorado that night represented a team that we'll call Team X for now, because their identity is part of what makes this story so explosive. This team currently holds a pick in the middle of the first round, somewhere between 12 and 18. They're desperate for a quarterback, and they believe Shedeur Sanders is their guy. But here's the problem. Mock drafts have Shedeur going in the top 10, maybe even top 5. Team X doesn't pick until the middle of the first round. If they want Shedeur, they'd have to trade up, giving up multiple first-round picks and possibly more to move into position to draft him. That's expensive, that's risky, and Team X doesn't want to pay that price. So they came up with a different plan, a plan that, if it works, would allow them to get Shedeur without trading up. A plan that involves manipulation, coordination with other teams, and an offer designed to control Shedeur before he's even drafted. Here's how the scheme works, according to sources who've been briefed on the proposal. Team X would make Shedeur a pre-draft contract offer, $40 million guaranteed over 4 years. But the offer comes with conditions. Shedeur would have to agree in writing that if he's drafted by Team X, he will immediately sign this contract without negotiation. No changes, no additional demands, just sign and play. But here's the real manipulation. The contract also includes a clause that says if Shedeur is drafted by any team other than Team X, the contract is void and Shedeur gets nothing. Team X is trying to lock Shedeur in before the draft happens, guaranteeing that if they draft him, he's under contract immediately with no leverage to negotiate better terms later. But it gets worse. According to sources, the executives also told Shedeur and Deion that Team X has been coordinating with other teams to make sure Shedeur falls to them in the draft.
They allegedly said that several teams picking ahead of them have agreed to pass on Shedeur in exchange for future considerations. That's collusion. That's draft manipulation. That's illegal under NFL rules. And according to sources, when the executives said this, Deion Sanders' expression changed. He looked at Shedeur, then he looked back at the executives, and he said something that ended the meeting immediately. "Get the hell out of my son's house." The executives tried to backtrack, claiming they were misunderstood, that they didn't mean teams were actively colluding, but Deion wasn't having it. He told them the meeting was over, that Shedeur wasn't signing anything, and that if they didn't leave immediately, he'd call his lawyers and the media. The executives left. The private jet took off. And by the next morning, Deion Sanders was on the phone with the NFL League office, filing a formal complaint. Now, you might be thinking this sounds too crazy to be true, but according to multiple sources who've been investigating this story over the past week, this meeting actually happened, and it's not an isolated incident.
Sources say that at least 2 other NFL teams have made similar pre-draft offers to Shedeur over the past month. Different amounts, different terms, but the same basic structure. Sign now, guarantee you'll play for us if we draft you, and we'll make sure you fall to our pick. This is a coordinated effort by teams in the middle of the first round to suppress Shedeur's draft stock and acquire him without having to trade up. And it's working. Over the past 6 weeks, Shedeur Sanders has mysteriously fallen in mock drafts. Analysts who once projected him as a top 5 pick are now saying he could fall to the middle of the first round. Reports have surfaced questioning his arm strength, his ability to read NFL defenses, his readiness for the professional game. But according to sources close to Shedeur, none of those concerns are based on actual evaluation. They're manufactured. They're being leaked by teams who want him to fall so they can draft him without paying the premium that a top 5 pick demands. Deion Sanders has been gathering evidence of this coordinated effort for weeks, and what he's collected is explosive. According to sources, Deion has text messages between NFL team executives discussing Shedeur's draft stock and coordinating their evaluations to create a narrative that he's falling in the draft. He has recorded phone calls, legally obtained in states where one-party consent is allowed, where agents admit that certain teams have made backroom deals to pass on Shedeur in exchange for future draft pick swaps or other considerations. He has testimony from NFL scouts who've been pressured by their front offices to downgrade Shedeur's evaluation, even though their film study shows he's a top 10 talent. And most damning of all, he has documentation of the pre-draft contract offers, including the one from Team X, that proves teams are trying to lock Shedeur in before the draft to eliminate his negotiating leverage.
If Deion releases this evidence publicly, it could be the biggest NFL scandal in decades. Teams could lose draft picks. Executives could be suspended or banned. The entire draft process could be called into question. But there's a strategic reason why Deion hasn't gone nuclear yet. He's using the threat of exposure as leverage to protect Shedeur. According to sources, Deion has privately contacted several NFL teams and told them, in effect, "I know what you're doing. I have the receipts. If you draft my son and try to lowball him or bury him on the depth chart as part of this scheme, I will expose everything." That threat has made some teams back off, but it's also made Shedeur's draft stock even more complicated. Now, teams aren't just evaluating him as a quarterback. They're evaluating whether they want to deal with Deion Sanders and the potential public relations nightmare that comes with him. Meanwhile, the $40 million offer from Team X is still technically on the table. The executives who flew to Colorado left the contract proposal behind. Shedeur could still sign it if he wanted to. But according to sources close to him, Shedeur has zero interest in accepting a deal that compromises his value and locks him into a team before he even knows if that team is the right fit. Shedeur believes in his talent. He knows he's a first-round quarterback, and he's willing to bet on himself in the draft rather than accept a prearranged deal that benefits the team more than it benefits him. That confidence, that refusal to be manipulated, is exactly what NFL executives fear. Because if Shedeur won't play their game, if he won't accept their terms, then they can't control him. And control is what this whole scheme has been about from the beginning. Let me break down what's really happening here, because this goes way beyond just Shedeur Sanders. The NFL draft is supposed to be a meritocracy. The best players get drafted highest. Teams evaluate talent objectively and make picks based on who they think will help them win. That's the narrative the league sells to fans. But the reality is much uglier. The draft is a marketplace where teams manipulate information, coordinate with each other, and use every dirty trick available to suppress player value and maximize their own leverage. Running backs get their stock tanked by teams leaking injury concerns or character issues. Wide receivers get downgraded because teams don't want to pay the premium that comes with a top 10 pick. Quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks with strong personalities or famous parents, get targeted for coordinated efforts to make them fall. And Shedeur Sanders, because of who his father is and because of the confidence he carries, has become the poster child for this manipulation. Teams look at Shedeur and see a talented quarterback, but they also see Deion Sanders, a Hall of Famer with a massive platform who won't be silenced or controlled, and that scares them. So they've been working together, sharing information, coordinating narratives, and trying to tank Shedeur's value so they can draft him later in the first round without having to trade up or pay top 5 pick money.
The $40 million offer was supposed to be the final move in this scheme. Lock Shedeur in with a contract that sounds generous, but actually limits his earning potential and eliminates his leverage. Get him to agree to play for a specific team before the draft. And if it works, Team X gets a franchise quarterback without paying the full price. But Shedeur said no, and Deion is now threatening to blow the whole thing up. The question now is what happens next. If Deion releases his evidence, if he goes public with the text messages, the recorded calls, the contract offers, the NFL will be forced to investigate. And if the investigation finds proof of collusion, the consequences would be massive. Teams involved could lose draft picks, including the picks they were planning to use on Shedeur. Executives could be suspended. The league could face lawsuits from other players who've been victims of similar schemes. But there's a risk for Deion, too. If he goes public and the evidence isn't as strong as he thinks, or if the NFL investigates and finds no wrongdoing, he'll look like a paranoid father who hurt his son's draft stock by making wild accusations. That's the gamble. And right now, with the draft just 2 months away, Deion is holding all the cards but hasn't played his hand yet. Meanwhile, Shedeur is preparing like nothing has happened. He's training, he's working out for teams, he's doing interviews, he's staying focused on football while his father handles the behind-the-scenes war. But make no mistake, this situation is affecting Shedeur's draft stock. Teams that were interested in him are now hesitant because they don't want the drama. Teams that were trying to manipulate his value are now worried about being exposed. And teams in the top 10 who might have drafted him are now questioning whether the risk is worth it. All of this chaos, all of this uncertainty stems from one meeting where Shedeur Sanders was offered $40 million and said no.
Most people would call that crazy. Most people would say you don't turn down that kind of money, especially when your NFL career could end with one injury. But Shedeur Sanders isn't most people. He's the son of prime time. He's been raised to believe in his value, to never settle, to never let anyone control him. And right now, that mindset is either going to make him a hero who exposed NFL corruption or a cautionary tale about a player who bet on himself and lost. The next 2 months leading up to the draft are going to be absolutely wild. Every mock draft, every team visit, every interview, all of it is going to be viewed through the lens of this scandal. Will teams back off Shedeur because they don't want to be associated with the alleged collusion? Will other teams take advantage and draft him higher than expected to prove they're not part of the scheme? Will Deion release his evidence and blow everything up? Nobody knows, but one thing is certain.
Shedeur Sanders rejecting $40 million is going to be remembered as one of the defining moments of the 2026 NFL Draft, for better or worse. As of right now, February 12, 2026, Shedeur has not publicly commented on the meeting or the contract offer. His agent released a brief statement saying, "Shedeur is focused on preparing for the draft and will make decisions in the best interest of his career." Team X has not been publicly identified, and sources who know which team it is are refusing to name them until there's more concrete evidence or an official investigation. Deion Sanders has not released any of the evidence he claims to have, but sources say he's preparing to do so if the NFL doesn't take his complaint seriously. The league office issued a statement saying they're aware of allegations regarding pre-draft conduct and are reviewing the matter. That's corporate speak for, "We're hoping this goes away quietly." But with Deion Sanders involved, nothing goes away quietly. And if he decides to go public with what he knows, the 2026 NFL Draft is about to become the most controversial in history. Shedeur Sanders turned down $40 million, and that decision might end up changing the entire NFL. Ending. Shedeur Sanders rejected a $40 million pre-draft offer because it was designed to manipulate him and suppress his value. The scheme involved collusion between teams, leaked narratives to tank his draft stock, and an attempt to lock him into a contract before he even knew where he'd be drafted. Deion has evidence that could blow this whole thing up, and the next 2 months will determine whether Shedeur's gamble pays off or whether he just made the biggest mistake of his career. Either way, the 2026 NFL Draft will never be the same.